Hi, it's Anna here. Welcome back to my channel. I finally have time to bring you another book summary. And today I will be summarizing Hold On to Your Kids by Neufeld and Gabor. The main point that the authors are making is that nowadays, especially in Western countries, children have become less connected to their parents and more connected to their peers. And this creates issues because our sphere of influence as parents really depends on how strongly connected our kids are to us, right? And so I thought it was a really good book to bring to this channel to complement all the other books that I've already summarized. So first, we'll discuss this phenomenon of peer orientation. Then we'll discuss why it creates issues. And then we'll discuss tips on how to counteract this and strengthen our connection with our kids. So let's start with discussing this phenomenon of peer orientation. You may have felt in your own life that parenting seems to be a lot harder than 30 years ago, right? And so why is that? You know, kids are the same developmentally, parents love their kids just as much as before, and if anything, we actually have access to so much more information than the previous generations. We have access to so many parenting experts, books, courses, you name it. Whatever information you want, you can have access to it. So what the authors are explaining is that it's the culture that has changed, where the children's attachments to parents is no longer getting supported by the culture and society. And so it's not, the lack of love of parents or a lack of parenting know-how, but it's the erosion of the attachment context that is making our parenting ineffective. So just a personal side note that I want to make is that when you read a book like this, which is 350 pages of just talking about the dangers of peer orientation, it's very easy to fall into the trap of thinking that this is what you need to blame everything on. And there's a lot. I think everything is just a lot more nuanced and complex than this, and we can never just blame one thing, right? But I think this book is very interesting, and the reason why I want to bring it is because I feel like to be a good parent these days, you actually have to be a lot more intentional, and you actually have to parent against the grain. And I can definitely see the author's point that, in the culture, there is a push, it's not just cultural, it's also economical, where parents aren't spending as much time with their kids, and we're also all so exhausted, right? And to create that connection with your kids, you need to actually spend quality time with them, right? With the rise of cost of living and everyone working 2 jobs and, working long hours and being so exhausted and tired, and that's also a huge issue, right? And I can also see that screens have a lot to answer for, and unfortunately in the version that I have of the book, there's only, this book was written I think 15 years ago, and there's only 1 chapter on screens that was added later on. I do feel like now screens and social media is probably a bigger culprit than peer orientation itself. But so, I just feel like, we can't be in fear, but it's important to be aware. And in my personal opinion, I actually think that all of this has been socially engineered this way on purpose to make parents lose their confidence and their sense of authority. So by bringing this knowledge and this awareness, we can claim our power back and parent a lot more intentionally. That was just a side note that I wanted to make. The point that the authors make is that with this cultural change over the last few decades, we have lost our village. I think we can all feel that. We've lost the extended family, we've lost community, we even have lost the family physician, right? So we live in a culture where this village of adults no longer exists. And I can also see that, there is a push for socialization at a very early age. Often a lot of parents are concerned that their toddlers aren't socializing enough, and we tend to want to push this more and foster this from a very, very early age. And so what the authors explain is that the crux of the issue is actually not the societal change per se. It's the lack of compensation for that change. And so what they're saying is that we need to bring back what they call a village of attachment, a set of nurturing adults to surround our kids and to help us in our parenting. The science of attachment explains that children cannot actually attach simultaneously to both parents and peers. And it makes sense when you think about it, because a child cannot attach to 2 conflicting views, right? They're going to have to choose. Their brain is going to have to choose between parental guidance or peer guidance, parental culture or peer culture, whenever those two are conflicting. In adult-oriented cultures, or in the past where the values were passed down vertically from grandparents, kids could actually attach to their peers without losing their bearings and without rejecting their parents' guidance. And what the authors are saying is that in today's society, this is no longer the case. Peers have replaced the primary source of attachment from the parents. And I mean, I would argue that it's not always the case, like it's definitely not the case for my kids, but it's something to be aware of. And the reason why this happens is that children have a visceral need for attachment that needs to be filled. And so if it's not filled by their parents, the brain will seek a substitute and attach to their peers instead, because they cannot bear the attachment void. And children are actually incapable of orienting by themselves. Like I said, they have a deep need for attachment because that's what gives them a sense of who they are, a sense of what's real, what's right. It basically gives them a compass point. And without an attachment, they actually suffer psychologically. So if they don't have it from their parents, they will seek it from their peers. And what does not work and cannot work is the coexistence of competing primary attachments, competing orienting relationships. In other words, orienting relationships with conflicting values and conflicting messages. One will automatically lose out, just like a sailor cannot get direction from two competing magnetic north poles. Either the peer culture dominates or the parents take the lead. It cannot be both, it has to be one or the other. So now let's discuss why peer orientation creates issues. And the first issue is that our connection to our kids, this attachment bond, is what makes it easier for us to parent. When we don't have that with our kids, and you might notice it from time to time when you lose the connection with your kids, say if it's like a period of dysregulation that your kid is going through and you don't have a good relationship with them, it becomes very difficult to parent them, right? They don't respect us, they don't want to listen to us. Obviously I'd say that as you know, with all the videos that I've done, periods of dysregulation are completely normal. So we shouldn't freak out and think, oh my God, I've lost connection with our kids. I think this connection with our kids ebbs and flows. But it's when it becomes constant and over a long period of time that we should really pay attention to this. And a sign that our children are peer-oriented is actually when they are repelled by similarity with their parents and they want to be as different to their parents as possible. And often we confuse this with their desire for individuation, but actually genuine individuation would manifest across all of the child's relationships, not just with adults. The second issue, to put it simply, is that peer orientation is really a case of the blind leading the blind, right? So let's dive more into this. Firstly, there are really important factors that are missing from these interactions. Important factors that children get from us, but not from their peers, like unconditional love, acceptance, desire to nurture, emotional maturity, the ability to extend oneself for the sake of the other, the willingness to sacrifice for the growth and development of the other. And peers really aren't qualified to point out right from wrong, to distinguish fact from fantasy, to identify what works and what doesn't work, and to direct them as to where to go and how to get there. It's really this case of, the crux of parenting is really to help our children develop good character. I really feel that passionately, and this is not something that kids can get from peers. The second thing is that when the peer is the compass point, the child looks to their peers for cues on how to act, what to wear, how to look, what to say, and what to do. Her peers will become the arbiters of what is good, what is happening, what is important, and even of how she defines herself. And as you can imagine, peers aren't qualified for that. And just on a side note, my 10-year-old has actually observed this at school, where some of her peers spend a lot of time on TikTok and are emulating what they see on social media. And she actually calls this group the Sassy Girls, because it's actually showing in the way they talk, in sassy voices, the way they act, the way they dress, and she can really see that it's just not an authentic version of who they are. It's just what they've absorbed from social media. And lastly, the issue also is that these are very limited and superficial attachments. Peer orientation only actually saves them from feeling lost, not actually getting lost. So this means that the visceral needs that I was talking about before of attachment and the fact that the brain will find a substitute if the child cannot attach to their parent, it means that this need is actually not being fulfilled fully, because the attachment to the peer is so superficial. It's not based on the unconditional love and acceptance that the children really need. So now let's discuss the author's recommendations on how we can hold on to our kids. And I want to start this section by sharing a quote from this book that I really like. The modern obsession with parenting as a set of skills to be followed along lines recommended by experts is really the result of lost intuitions and of a lost relationship with children previous generations could take for granted. That is what parenthood is, a relationship. Only a two-way connection with our child can secure it. When our parenthood is secure, natural instincts are activated that dictate far more astutely than any expert how to nurture and teach the young ones under our care. The secret is to honor our relationship with our children in all of our interactions with them. I really resonate with this quote because it's actually been my observation as well, and I discuss it in this video. In doing this YouTube channel and reading all these books and summarizing them for you and following a lot of parenting experts, I've really seen that there is a push towards making us, the parents, really lose our intuition. There's a push to parent from our head rather than our heart and our gut instinct. And it's creating so many issues, and I've experienced it myself, and I had to really work on that. And I know that when I did that video, a lot of you commented that you felt the same way. And it creates so many issues because, to me, the true connection to our children, the true attachment bond, actually comes from a genuine enjoyment of our children. We really need to actually love spending time with our children, and they actually need to feel that we are enjoying their presence. And it's not something that we can pretend. Kids are actually very intuitive. They can feel such subtle energies. They will know if you are pretending and if you are just putting on an act. So that's why the most effective way to parent and discipline our children is really to create that enjoyment with our children. And I've done so many videos on this channel to help you do all that, which is simplifying your life, getting the knowledge, but also doing the inner work so you can actually develop this inner guidance system and really connect with your kids. Like, this entire YouTube channel is fostered around that, to really create this genuine bond with your kids. And so, coming back to this book, what the authors are saying is that the power to parent doesn't come from techniques, no matter how well meant. It comes from the attachment relationship. And our power and authority with our kids goes beyond just fulfilling their survival needs, right? Food and shelter. It's actually fulfilling their psychological needs. They need to feel that they need you to support them emotionally and psychologically. And in my family, we talk about this as in our family, we have each other's back, because that's what I feel connection is. This genuine sense that we love each other, we enjoy each other, and we always have each other's back no matter what. And so what the authors say is that just as relationship is at the heart of the issue with parenting and teaching difficulties, it's also at the heart of the solution. We need to come back to fostering this genuine relationship with our kids. Adults who ground their parenting in a solid relationship with their child actually parent intuitively. They do not have to act from techniques, tips and tricks, or scripts. They parent from understanding and empathy. And honestly, it actually makes parenting life so much easier when you're not constantly seeking externally the answers to the problems, but you really tune in to your own body, tune into your child, and make decisions on a case-by-case basis, because the solution can be different from one child to another, and it also can be different from one moment to another. If you are truly listening to your child, truly coming from a place of understanding, empathy, and intuition, you will know what to do. Sometimes you will need to validate emotions. Sometimes you will need to put very firm boundaries. So how can children form peer attachments that do not compete with adult attachments? And here is what the authors are suggesting. What they are saying essentially is that we have two jobs. The first one is to establish structures that cultivate connection. And the second one is that we need to place restrictions that weaken peer orientation. Of course, we cannot decide who their friends are, but we don't actually have to worry about this that much, because if we are fostering this strong connection to our kids, that connection will do the work for us. So here are some things that the authors suggest. First, we need to get back in touch with our intuition and natural parental instincts. It's interesting that we still find this natural when looking after babies, but it becomes much harder to do from toddlerhood and up. Then we need to make the relationship the priority by creating routine where we actually make time for quality time and building that connection with our kids. We need to make the child feel that they are special to us and appreciated in our life and not a burden. So it's not about buying gifts, but really showing genuine pleasure in spending time with them, talking to them, which is what I was saying before. The authors say that the foundation of a child's true self-esteem is the sense of being accepted, loved, and enjoyed by the parents, exactly as he, the child, is. We also need to act as their guide. We have to remember that children are in need of being oriented and that we are their best resource for that, whether they know it or not. We must not wait for their confused look, but confidently assume our position in their life as guide and interpreter. And honestly, it's been my observation that because parents are so tired, a lot of parents have checked out on this. Like it's such an important thing. Like we are their guide, we are their role model, and we really need to take that aspect of parenting a lot more seriously, so we can make sure that we are raising, well-adjusted adults into society. We need to reclaim peer-oriented children frequently by imposing some restrictions on peer interaction, while at the same time making it a priority to collect the child whenever possible. So, it means that, of course, your child can have play dates and all of that, but we also need to sometimes say no because we want to have weekend excursions alone with the child, or, make time for one-on-one interactions. The next one is connection before correction, which means that, if you are in a battle with your child at the moment where you're constantly arguing with them, it might be time to make the time to reconnect, because the way we discipline is so much more effective when we actually have connection with our child. The next is that your children need to know you're on their side, which is what I was saying before. Like in my family, we always say that we have each other's back. Staying connected when physically apart, so this could be like giving them a picture of yourself, special jewelry, or notes in their lunchbox, telling them how much you miss them when you pick them up from school. Restricting peer contact, so this is when we need to be strong in our beliefs and values to have the courage to go against the flow of society and other parents. So I know that, for example, my kids are 10, 8, and 5, and so far I haven't agreed to any sleepovers. And it's something I feel very strongly about, and I have no issue saying no. We need to recreate the attachment village. We need to value our adult friends who show an interest in our kids and find ways to foster their relationship with them. This is especially important in adolescence when kids push away from their parents. We also need to put a high premium on creating customs and traditions that connect our children to extended family. Being connected is not enough. Genuine relationship is required. The way we socialize also needs to change to include kids. I know this is very hard to do because everyone is so, working in silo and so isolated, but I feel like the more people start waking up to all of this and be parenting more intentionally, the more we can all come together. And lastly, get to know your kids' friends and cultivate relationships with our children's friends' parents, so that you create a world where proximity with peers is not at the expense of proximity to parents. So that, for example, on the weekend, instead of your kids just having a play date with their friend, you can all hang out together with the parents as well. The ultimate goal is to create a connection so strong with our kids that peers cannot compete. Because children won't be satisfied with peer orientation if they are very connected to you, because it will pale in comparison. And also in doing that, we are also role modeling what healthy, fulfilling relationships look like, so that it will come very handy for our kids in adulthood. That's it for today. Thanks for watching this video, and please let me know in the comments if you have anything to share on this topic, and feel free to share your own experience. As I know, I always read comments on YouTube, and there's always nuggets of wisdom that you can extract from anyone's experience. Thanks for listening. See you next time.